Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leaders Connect series podcast and our YouTube channel. Today, here I have a special guest, Daniel, but I'll give him an opportunity to say hello to us here in a few seconds. For those that don't know me, I'm Essie Daniel, and we work together with my partner in crime and business and life. And we do trainings, speaking engagements, leadership workshops, and anything personal development. It's such an honor to be here with you. Thank you for joining us. We don't take it for granted, and we are going to have a great time. So to introduce our topic today, we're going to talk about the Maxwell method of DISC, which is a behavior assessment tool. Do you sometimes wonder why certain people are the way they are? Why are they always on the front line? Or why are they always laid back? Why is so-and-so so detail-oriented? And how comes this person never completes their work? What if I tell you today that it's because they're wired differently? Each one of us is a combination of 4 personalities: the D, the I, the S, and the C. But we have 2 and sometimes 3 that are dominant. And what that means is you'll always notice that you're good and you're better at something than you are with something else. But that doesn't mean if there was a fire and you're not a D personality, you would not get your family out of the house, right? And God forbid, we don't want that to happen. If you're in danger or if you're required to do something, your personality that is needed for that particular task will immediately rise to the top. But naturally, we are a combination of all 4, but 2 or sometimes 3 are dominant. So today we're going to talk about this behavior assessment tool called DISC. We're not going to take a deep dive in it because we have a workshop coming up. And so we want to encourage you to register for the workshop so that you can experience the whole training. But for today, we're going to give you a snippet that is going to be fun. So, Daniel, I want to bring you in to say hi to us and also tell us a little bit about how we can understand our behavior.
Thank you, Essie. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So the first question that you ask yourself when you're talking about behaviors is, why understand it? What does this mean for me? As human beings, we are very selfish in a way. We always want to ask ourselves, what's in it for me? So the question is, why do we need to understand behavior? For you to understand others, you need to understand yourself. Because your lens to the world is how you're wired. So you cannot say you understand someone else if you don't understand yourself. We are, in our own worlds, the focal point or the starting point or the point of reference. The other thing is people respond better to those who are like them. That's why when I meet someone, I would ask, what's your name? And if someone says, my name is Daniel, I'll go, oh, me too. And immediately we have a connection. A connection could be a name. It could be where you're from. It could be a shared interest. But as human beings, we tend to gravitate towards those who are like us. as opposed to the laws of physics that say like poles repel and unlike poles attract. So when I gravitate or you gravitate to someone who's more like you, then you build rapport. And once you build rapport, you build trust. Trust is more easily established when there is rapport. The other reason we need to understand human behavior is because we need to eliminate the blind spots in the way we present ourselves. Have you ever stood in front of a camera and made a recording or recorded your voicemail greeting, and then you replay it and you ask yourself, do I really sound like this? Is this how I look? Because we all have a high opinion of ourselves. Well, most of us. And with that comes blind spots that we need to eliminate. And all this begins with understanding ourselves. By learning our own disc style, our own personality style, it makes us the most comfortable because I know myself now. I can go and talk to others. I know how to approach different people. So if you have not taken the assessment, I would highly encourage you to reach out to us before the workshop. We'll give you a key code and you'll be able to come with a personality report that we can do a deep dive either as a group or even on a personalized level. And that will be of invaluable value to you. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing why we should understand our behaviors. We cannot give what we don't have or what we do not understand. And that is why it's important that we understand ourselves so that we can be able to understand others. So briefly, let's talk about the factors that contribute to the makeup of who we are. There are 3 factors. Our personalities and behaviors are shaped of these three main areas. 1, there's heredity. 2, there's environment. And 3, there is role models. So let's look at the first one, heredity. And from birth, there are distinct patterns of behavior. And you will notice, if you've of course, we've all had an opportunity to be around small kids. There are kids that are calm from birth. They're very calm, they're very peaceful. Even when they're hungry, of course, they'll cry. But then there are those that cry louder. There are those that seek attention more. It all starts from birth. At birth, you can start seeing those distinct patterns of behavior. Why? Because they are hereditary. All right, let's look at the environment. Our environment will impact our style. In fact, life experiences, especially emotionally charged ones in our developmental years, can have an impact on our personality style. If you grew up in an environment where you couldn't say much because maybe you were child number 3, and you have older siblings, you may find out that individual, most of the time they are quiet because they are younger. They may feel inexperienced or inadequate. Cultural differences also, culturally, that also makes such a big difference because of the upbringing. So the environment that you grow in, that you're in, will also determine your personality. And then finally, and I'm just touching and going because we'll do an in-depth study on this during the workshop. It's going to be so much fun. The next thing is role models. Who are your role models? There are role models in our lives who teach us what is valuable, or who may even reward us for certain behaviors in order to reinforce these behaviors within us. So who are your role models? Believe it or not, they impact our personalities, who we are, how we carry ourselves. If you are, for example, at a new job, you may find that if your job requires you, like a customer service job, you may find that your job requires that you are outgoing, you're social, you're happy, you sound and look happy, even though things may not be working well behind the scenes. That is because of the environment that you're in at that time, or the role models that you have that are mentoring you, that are training you. So those are the three main factors that contribute to the makeup of who we are. And I want to add one statement. When you know, or when you realize who you are, or when you learn DISC and how it works, you will learn how people are wired, and you will not take things personally. Why? Because you'll come to realize, oh, it's not even about me. It's never been about me. That's just how they are wired. And when you know that that is how your boss is wired, that is how your child or your spouse or your friend, that's just how they are wired, you will not expect them to be any different. You will not take things personal. For example, an outgoing person, an I personality, they're very outgoing, they're the heart of the party. They make friends quickly, but there's only one challenge. One of their blind spots is making promises that sometimes they forget to fulfill because they get to meet a lot of people. And unless they're intentional to going back and looking at all the people they met and remembering all the conversations they had and then following up, chances are this person will always come across as phony or untrustworthy or one that does not fulfill their promises. Why? Because that's just how they're wired. But if you take that personal, I mean, you'll always feel like, oh, they always promise and they never deliver. Then you end up getting hurt. But on the other hand, on the flip side, if you are that I personality, you get to know what your blind spots are, and you are intentional on taking care of those blind spots. So very quickly, I'm going to invite Daniel here, and we're going to look at these cards, and we're going to talk more about this when you join our workshop, but we just wanted to give you a snippet. So Daniel, I'm going to have you briefly just talk about this. Let me arrange them in order. There's the D, personality, there's the I, personality, then there's the S, and there's the C. And that is how we get the word disc. Or I can just turn it this way. That's how we get the word disc. So briefly, Daniel, tell us a little bit about the outgoing, the reserved, task-oriented, and people-oriented people. And then quickly we can touch on the D, I, S, and C. And then after that, we'll invite everybody to the workshop.
Okay. So we have two different facets of people. There are those who are outgoing and there are those who are reserved. Actually, let me say we have four. There's outgoing, then there's reserved. There are those who are people-oriented, and there are those who are task-oriented. So if you're outgoing, you can be outgoing and task-oriented, or you can be outgoing and people-oriented, such that you're outgoing, but your outgoingness is more about what kind of people you meet and what kind of people you interact with. While the task-oriented is more about what needs to be accomplished right now, and you're still outgoing. Mm-hmm. There are those who are reserved and they're task-oriented. That would describe me. Then there are those, actually I am people-oriented, sorry. I am reserved, but I am people-oriented. So depending on which of those four you are, that's where we get the D, I, S, and C. And SC will talk a little bit about the four letters as we continue here. So think about outgoing, reserved, people-oriented, or task-oriented. Those are the 4 points of our compass here as we try to find our true north and our true orientation. Back to you.
Thank you, Daniel. So for the D personality, they are outgoing and they are task-focused. And they have many strengths, but they also have quite a few weaknesses, like any other personality. So for the outgoing person, they're confident, they're confident, they're driven, results-oriented, they thrive in challenges, they are very decisive, and they're action takers. And I'm not going to share everything. I'm just going to touch on the most important ones, just a few. Actually, they're all important, but just touch on a few because of the interest of time. How about their challenges? What are their growth areas? They can be very impatient, very argumentative. They can be overpowering, and they dislike routines. And then there's one that everyone might be familiar of. Their ego is way up there, right? That is the D personality. So what is the motivation of a D personality? They're motivated by challenge and control. Challenge and control. All right, let's talk about their blind spot. How to correct their blind spot. If you're a D personality, you want to put people before your goals and you want to listen to other people's ideas and opinions. All right, next, and we just, again, touching on it, there's the I personality. The I personality is outgoing and they're very people-focused. Some of their strengths are they're very friendly, they're talkative, and they're encouraging. We'll cover the rest later on. How about their weaknesses? They experience difficulty with following through. They are inattentive to details. And let me share one more. They're easily distracted. Okay, so how can they correct their blind spots? If you're an I personality, you want to listen more and you want to focus on deadlines and milestones. Let's talk about the S personality. The S personality, amazing people. They're reserved and they're people focused. Their strengths are they're very reliable, they're systematic, they're good listeners, and many more that we'll cover during the workshop. And what are their weaknesses or their growth areas? Lack of motivation, self-motivation. They are resistant to change and they avoid confrontation. And sometimes they have difficulty establishing priorities. So those are their growth areas. So how can they correct their blind spots? One, if you're an S personality, you want to learn how to accept change and you also want to learn to balance the needs of others with your own. And then finally, we'll talk about the C personality. So this personality, they are reserved and they are task-oriented. Their strengths are they are very organized, they are scheduled, they are precise, they cut once, they measure several times and cut once. There's one here sitting next to me. He's a precisionist. And they are analytical problem solvers. And we'll talk about the rest later on. But what are their weaknesses? Well, they may overanalyze and underreact. Their perfectionism may keep them from starting because they want to be perfect, so they take long starting. And their fear of failure, they are so afraid of failing. And there are much more strengths and weaknesses with all of these personalities. But let's talk about the one thing that a C personality can do to correct their blind spots. If you're a C personality, you want to focus on excellence, not perfectionism. That's a major one, that's big, because they want to be perfect and they do not want to be criticized. Yeah, so Daniel, we will focus on perfectionism, excellence. We'll focus on excellence and not perfectionism. As you can tell, this is a great workshop. It's a great training. It's great for couples. I remember back in the day, well, maybe not too long ago, when Daniel used to have conversations and I would think on the go. And for him, he would need time to process what I just shared with him. And I just could not understand why he's not participating. But you see, that's not how he's wired. And I would take it personal. And what I needed to realize that he is wired differently. When you know and when you realize how people are wired, you will not take things personally. So this tool or this workshop will talk about how to learn other people's personalities and how to practice what we call the platinum rule, which states what, Daniel?
Treat others the way they would want to be treated.
Exactly. Otherwise, thank you so much for staying with us. We hope you have learned a thing or two, and we hope you can join us for our workshop. If you would like to be added to this workshop, we would want you to register. By the way, it's a complimentary workshop. We'd want you to register with us, and you can actually just put your name or your email address on the comments section below, or you can send us a direct message and we will send you the link so that you can register for this great workshop. Daniel, do you have any parting words?
No, just I look forward to meeting many of you during this workshop and we get to know each other more and better. Thank you so much.
Thank you and have a great week. We can't wait to be in the room with you. Bye for now.